second this thing.
Yeah.
But, there you go. So,
If you
I'm
sign
working
in,
anyway.
you get a
Yeah, I just did.
raffle ticket.
Yeah, just
Get a raffle
did.
ticket.
Audition, look all this stuff.
Happy holidays. I know, I don't have any coffee.
I know, that's why. Oh, hello, dear. I just talked about you. You sent me the thing and I did a tour, so I'm
Usually good start after what, the movie? Yep.
Uh-huh. Never answered my call, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Best part, oh god, that good stuff right there. Rice rolls, shrimp rolls, oh man. Oh man, I can't resist that scrumptious, goodness gracious. Well,
Got some stirs over here.
this reception's only been started and we only got a small groups. So, yeah. So, hopefully there'll be more of people coming who just like, oh, I need to know about the Requiem exhibit. So hopefully it won't be long. So, hope to see you a bit later.
Hey, good evening, everyone. How are you? I'm Tomiko Wong. I'm the new program director here at Chinese Culture Center, and I'm very proud to welcome you to our space. We have a wonderful evening planned for you tonight, and I really want to thank everybody who's here. It's really a delight to see so many familiar faces and also some new faces. So I look forward to us sharing the evening and seeing this wonderful film. We're very, very fortunate because the artist whose work is currently being featured in our gallery is actually here with us tonight. You'll see her on screen and you'll get to talk to her after the film screening. So we're very, very lucky and happy to have Summer Mei Lee here today with us. So let's see, without further ado, I want to introduce our wonderful executive director, that's Mabel Tang. She's going to tell you a little bit about the history of this project and how it came to be. And it's really an amazing story, and the artwork is amazing, and the film tonight that you're going to see, this is actually one of the very first screenings that we're doing in public, so it's really great. I will say that after the screening, we're going to have Zi Ying from our team. She's assistant curator. She's going to be speaking and moderating the conversation with the filmmaker Jim Choi and also with Summer Mei Lee, Lin Lu. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it to Mabel.
Thank you, Tomiko. How are you tonight? Well, I want you to turn around and say hi to someone at the next table.
Next table or the same table?
Next table.
Again.
Hi.
Hello, next table.
Hello. Thank you. And it would be great before you left today to meet somebody new at the Chinese Culture Center. That is what we would love to do. I want to welcome you again. And tonight is the official closing ceremony of Requiem. This project was 3 years in the making. It started back in actually 2000, at the end of 2013. Our curator, Abby Chan, and myself went to Hong Kong, and we've been discussing with the Hong Kong Donghua Hospital about their work. And they really want to do an exhibition in San Francisco. And we've been trying to really understand their work and how to appreciate Donghua's work and Donghua's leadership, because we are not in Hong Kong, right? So it took us a long time to go back and forth to finally decided on the concept of using contemporary art to appreciate Donghua's leadership. This exhibition is really a groundbreaking exhibition. Nobody has ever done anything like this. And after CCC had made this arrangement with Donghua, this is back in 2000, fast forward to 2015, we finally agreed on a concept. Because originally Donghua wants to do an exhibition the original, traditional way, you know, hanging photograph. And say in 1860 we did this. In 1880 we did this. In 1900 we did this. So we thought very few people are going to come to look at something like that. But if we could curate it in a lively, emotional manner, people will be interested. Not just the Chinese American community, but the diverse community in the Bay Area. And we thought of no other artist than Summer Lee, who could delve into such a deep topic. So Summer, this is your success. So fast forward to our conversation with the Hong Kong Tonghua Hospital. It wasn't as smooth as what I'm telling you, because they really, they never tried anything like this, and they were worried. You know, they didn't know what, you know, young artists going to do with their work, because their work is really traditional and all that. But since the opening to today, almost 4,000 people came. People from the art world in San Francisco came, people from Chinatown came, people from the Asian American community came. It was just a moving experience. And Donghua, the chairperson, was so happy to hear the report. He suggested that he would donate 2 round-trip tickets to Hong Kong for people to leave their comment after you have seen the exhibition. That's why we have this contest going on. Fast forward to today, you and anybody you know have 3 more days to enter this contest. All you have to do is to come look at the exhibition, take a selfie, and leave a comment. Your comment could be 1 word, it could be 1 page, but I think the shorter the better. And they will be reviewed by a panel of 9 judges, right, Timiko?
Actually, 8.
8 judges.
So we have to agree, no tiebreaker.
Including someone from the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office, community leaders, as well as art and cultural experts. And we are not announcing the judges, so you can't influence them. But at what time is the December 23rd, 5 p.m. Is the absolute deadline?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, December 23rd at 5 p.m. when we actually close the exhibition is the deadline for entering the contest. Today, this documentary is really filmed by San Francisco's very best filmmaker, Jim Choi, who's here with us. Jim, take us down. Without further ado, I'm going to stop right here, put your attention to the screen, and we will start the documentary today. Thank you again. And after the documentary, we're going to have raffle drawing, and you will be treated to a conversation with Summer Lee and Jim Choi.
So now I'm pleased to introduce Ziying Duan. She's our assistant curator, and she will be in conversation with Jim Choi and also with Summer Lee. So I'd like to invite them up here to come say a few words and to answer your questions as well.
Thanks for everyone for coming tonight. Before we start the Q&A section, I just want to say thank you, especially to the film crew, including, of course, the cinematographer Jim Choi, and also editor Chihiro Winbush, who happened not to be here tonight, and also the assistant camera, Melanie Mano, and of course the many interviewees and the people who help us for the film, and of course our artist Summer Lee. So welcome to stage. So Jim is a filmmaker known for injecting his own artistic perspective in the storytelling of especially documentary as a film genre. And and yeah, and he had worked for the Central for Asian American Media in the National Broadcast Series, right? And also, I heard that you were nominated for an Emmy Award before for one of the films that you made. Yeah. So, and also actually, the very first artistic profile documentary that you had is a collaboration in between you and CCC, right? Back to 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
So we have been working with each other for 10 years.
10 years,
Yeah. And Summer is an artist working with different kind of media, including like drawing, painting, installation, video, everything that you can imagine. And she has been like shown like internationally and nationally, of course, now. And actually the very recent, another project that she had with CCC is a public art project that takes the form of outdoor video installation. And it's in Chinatown, 14-1 Ross Alley. So I want to just open this opportunity for all of you. If you have any specific questions for either the documentary or the exhibition project or the backstory of the history, you are welcome to just raise up your hands and we will pass on the microphone to you.
No, get up here.
Yeah, you can get up here also.
No, we'll run away. Get up here, Mel.
Not in.
Here you
Okay, all right.
go. This is Mel. She was the AC and she's a really important part of our crew. Yeah. Questions?
Anyone?
Right there.
Should I move? Hi. Well, first of all, thank you. That was such a profound piece for me. This is the second time I'm seeing it. I saw it, I think, 2 weeks ago at I think the Donor Appreciation Night, and I loved it. I cried the whole way through. And I loved it so much, I'm back to see it again. So I have a question. One of the themes that I saw in this piece is this, the calling. Yes, so, you know, you felt called to do this amazing thing that you did, right? I think like you said you integrated something from your grandmother, right? You were carrying that piece for her. And then, you know, there was that person who was taking care of the funeral home, right? He's not related to those people, and he feels a calling. And then the woman that you were talking to was also like felt called. So I would love to hear more about your experience of how it came, you know, how you started to, I guess the whole process from as much as you'd like to share. And I want to say that, you know, I felt called to be here. I had no idea that, you know, the night that I came here, I've been doing ancestral healing studies for about a couple of years, studying Chinese ritual and Chinese ancestral practices. And the night that I came here, I had no idea that that exhibit was going to be there. I had no idea they were going to show this documentary. And so I felt called to be here that night. And so I would love to hear more about that, about your experience. Yeah, whatever it was that compelled you, inspired you. Thank you.
As you can see, it's quite emotional for me, this idea to be called. And I don't think I can talk about it very much, so I'm sorry. And thank you for also being called. The only thing I can repeat that I was trying to articulate was that through my love and connection with my grandmother, she did pass on something of a duty of obligation And there's something in Chinese culture that you exist if you are remembered. And somebody just told me this beautiful sentiment that I think we have a lot of anxiety at the end of our life, not maybe just our disappearance, but what of us will be remembered. And that maybe Chinese culture built in these practices to alleviate this anxiety. Anyway, I also think that it's the job of the artist to just listen, and I felt this whole project was just a lesson in listening. And somebody asked me, well, and it wasn't so clear, but why didn't you leave your great uncle in any of these places? Like, he went back home to his childhood home. And all of these things happened, by the way, without much volition from me. It was a set of conditions, including the filmmakers, the organizations. I just showed up. All I had to do was, thank you. I just had to say yes and listen. And the first location, when I brought my great uncle there, which was the cemetery, which that guy in the purple shirt turned out to be a cousin. And the ancestral tombs he was showing turned out to be my great uncles too. And so that little slip where he says, oh, my great uncle, he left for the United States, you know, we know, and I was like at the time, oh, really, that's nice. And then we get back to the village, and they look up the name in the village, and they said, this is your ancestral home. The guy in the purple shirt says, that's my ancestral home. So we had been traipsing through this cemetery, and it turned out those were my ancestors, and I didn't even realize it at that time. I had the box, my great uncle in the spirit box sitting there, and I asked the guy in the purple shirt, and I told Stella, I said, why don't I just release the spirit here? And she said, oh, that's a terrible thought, Summer. First of all, you'd have to come back to China every year to pay respects. And I said, well, this guy's taking really good care of his ancestors. She's like, oh, but they're not your ancestors. That's so lazy. And I felt very white at that moment. Like, I don't know, I just felt very efficient. And she's like, you can't pass off your ancestor duty to somebody else. So I was like, okay. So that's where I just put the suitcase there, and I took a photo, and I thought, okay. And I swear, at that time, I did not know that those were my ancestors at that point. So we go to we find out it's her ancestral home, and I'm paying respects to their family altar. And I felt that was the moment where I thought, should I open the box there and release the spirit there? And I really had to listen, and we didn't have much time. And Stella said, the archives manager, she said, open it, Summer, you're here, this is it, this is the moment. And I just had this moment, this intuition that he was happy to have gone back. And, but it wasn't his home anymore. And so the natural thing was that he belonged back with my grandmother, and that his home was more connected to her than it was some location. And I don't know if home was ever settled for my grandmother, but I think that their love and their connection was a sense of home. And in the way, that was their reunion. And that was the calling. I believe in that part of the project. Yeah. No.
Thank you, Summer. My name is Robert with Ethnotech, Nancy and I. We've been working on a project that involves ancestral research and the story of Red Altar. But looking at the film here, even though it was a very personal journey, it was so rich with the images that are not just your story, but obviously 100,000 people or more. Because those men and women that came over, the men that came over, they laid the ground for all of this. All of this. And I just really appreciate the ephemeral and spiritual quality of the film, your artwork, the layers that are involved in that, and the ongoing question is, what is our connection with time and with ancestors amidst all this digital revolution that's going on? And if we can honor that past, we have a hope for what's going on in the future. I just really appreciate your work. It was very emotional for me, so thank you very much.
There's one thing that you said that I want to, that I didn't hit on, and is Darren here? There's Darren. We had this really nice conversation about, after a certain, you're fifth generation? Fourth, fifth, and I'm second half. that this idea of gratitude towards those who didn't make it. And we are a small percentage that did make it, or descendants of a small percentage that made it despite all the adversity, and that this feeling of, it goes back to this calling. If you were lucky enough to descend from the ones who made it, then it's a duty to keep venerating and to keep remembering. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Well, actually, it's not a question. It's just I feel that it's as a filmmaker, when you make a film, it touches so many hearts, and that's a great success. And you have done that. I mean, really, it's a great film, and I got emotional too. So that's all matters, really. And just for clarification, so your great uncles, the spirit, you brought it back to your grandmother's side, or what happened?
So it was my grandmother's older brother,
Right.
And they immigrated first with her father. He died very suddenly in Chicago at the age of 21, and I happened to find his grave, and I summoned his spirit back to China.
Spirit back to China. So, okay, so the box that came from the hospital,
No, that was my own artistic intervention.
Okay.
But really, as I think you said, it was to be a contemporary parallel, like a surrogate story to the historical one, because we couldn't really. The other fun fact is the bone boxes that are still sitting in the coffin home are not archived because they are still bone boxes that are waiting to be claimed. So I couldn't, and nobody can touch them because they really are not an archival thing. They're really bodily remains that need to go home still. So the way for me to make an intervention was to fashion my own box, so that I could activate it in that way.
Thank you so much for sharing your personal story. I mean, really, it touched so many hearts. That's a great film.
Really, Jim, I think did a really good job because he had to condense, I don't know how many hours of footage that we
shot a lot.
We shot a lot. And there were a lot of layers to the story and a lot of pressures too to also make sure that both the organizations that were facilitating this, felt covered. And then there's the personal story, but also the historical one. And how do you balance not being historically didactic, which can lose a lot of people, but not also centering it too much on me, which I'm not, I don't want to take away from the deep, rich history with my little story. So I think he really, held that big mess together very well.
I mean, that's interesting to me, because are there other questions of, are there other issues, like, are people confused about any of the details of what happened? Does anyone else?
Is this his chance
totally
to get feedback
confused
from the next edit?
by what they saw?
I'm a little bit confused about the process, ceremony in which you're repatriating the soul. Could you say a little bit more about that? It was a bit mysterious.
It is mysterious. And do you want to talk about it? Well, you talk about it.
Well, I think it is truly a mystery, and are you curious about the formalities of the repatriation, or what exactly are you curious about?
Well, I'm interested in, the surface formality of the ceremony, but also the inner experience of the participants of the ceremony, and I know this is very mystical, but the experience of the soul even, as they're going through this process of repatriation, if that's not too abstract.
No, not at all. I think one of the main fact that was super elucidating for all of us was when Celia Tan, the professor from Wu University, explained that because people in southern China emigrated from the north, they brought their ancestors with them, and so their ancestors had a second burial, and so it became a custom for southern Chinese to have a second burial. So So after 7 years of being interned, the body is exhumed, and a bone setter will clean the bones and then take a single a continuous piece of red thread and reconstruct the skeleton. Then in which the skeleton will be placed in a, and not every village does it the same way, but in the examples that we've seen, the skeleton is placed in a large earthen vessel, in a crouched fetal position, and then it's buried, and that's the second burial. But before that, what's often done is there's a spirit summoning, where a feng shui master will in a ritual that involves a duck and a string, and lots of chanting, will summon the spirit of the deceased back to the remains. And we'll release the duck and slowly pull the duck back towards the center. That's what we were told by Celia, right?
Yeah, and there's actually a particular poem that the feng shui master will read and do an incantation over. So let's say there was a box here. They couldn't find the body in San Francisco. The body was destroyed or whatever, but they knew there was a name and they wanted to send that back to China. The feng shui master was called out, and he did an incantation based on this very ancient poem and summoned the spirit into the box. They closed the box, and the name also holds energy. In Chinese writing, name has a lot of energy. So the name, has the spirit too. And then a third of those bone boxes were empty and were like that. And they were shipped 30 days from San Francisco to Hong Kong, and then hopefully back to their Chinese village.
Could you possibly read the poem in English and then someone read it in Chinese?
It's actually it's a wiki. You can wiki it. Yeah, I can't remember. It's Zhao Hun. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's a long poem, and Zhao Hun means yin yang. It's like the spirit, and there's two. Anyway, it's a long tradition of splitting the spirits into different parts, and some parts need to go, some parts need to stay, and there's a lot of traditions, even in Chinatown burials, where they, with paper money, that they do lots of things to make sure the spirit follows where it should, so that it can go be at rest, and yeah. But there's lots of scholarship around it. It's easy to be found. Chinese burial rituals is an anthology that has a lot of scholarly articles on that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes, Mom.
I was wondering if your feeling of home has evolved.
She wants to know if my feeling of home has evolved. It's always with my mom. Oh, man. Does anybody have home worked out for me? Does anybody know exactly where home is? I think, I don't know. I don't really know. I just think that it is possible to find a state of home in unhousedness. And I think I have profound respect for immigrants who had to lose their home and have to negotiate this displacement. And I've never had to negotiate such a violent displacement. And so I'm always open to hear how people reconciled home. I think, but I do think it has something to do with love. And I think what ended up with my grandmother and her brother, that it was about a love and connection that made them at home with each other. But
It's not a place.
it's not a place.
I will just take the last chance to ask the final question. After all, you can ask the question in person. I want to ask a question to Melanie, because I know except for three of you and also Stella from Donghua, none of us have been into this journey, and it's generally becoming a mystery until you reveal it through the documentary. So I would want to know what's the exchanges in between three of you or even four of you, and how that affects on the final combination of this project. Yeah.
I don't even know where to start. I guess, at the start of it, I really had no idea what to expect, because I kind of heard a couple of broad strokes about what it was supposed to be about, because it's kind of two split things in a way. Like it's Summer's story, but also a historical thing in some way. And for me, my part is like I'm mainly a technician, so I always go on to a job like, okay, whatever, you know. But I didn't expect to be like as affected by it, and to like how I did. And I'd met Summer before on a project, and always really liked her because she's really fun and great and nice. But like I think we really bonded, which was really cool. And especially Jim too. Like I have so much respect for Jim as a filmmaker. He's just primarily also like I think it's really amazing how much like time and energy he gives into like telling the stories of our community. Well, particularly the Asian American community. It's kind of like what I set out to do personally when I was in college. I was like, oh, I'm going to be a filmmaker and make all these cool documentaries, and now what I do is sort of like I work on like commercials and like movies and things, but then also I get to do these amazing projects like Jim's and be part of something that I actually care about and think is a worthwhile story. As I'm sure you can imagine, commercials aren't all that fulfilling to the soul, but you know, I do it to make a living. But for me, it like justifies my path and my career in film when I get to be a part of something like this. And I'm very thankful to both of you guys.
I think we should congratulate CCC and Donghua. I mean, I think it's, we could have easily had this like Ken Burns style slideshow telling the history of bone repatriation if it was Donghua's way. But thanks to CCC for pushing them towards contemporary art, you know, and everyone should be congratulated. Thank you guys for coming out. It's a pleasure to show it to you guys.
I really want to say thank you, Summer and Jim and Melanie. Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm really sorry.
Mel is good.
Mel is good.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, really, thank you so much, and I appreciate your being here tonight. Let's see, we have a few things that we want to do before we close the evening, and I did want to say a little bit about the people we have in the room tonight, and I did want to really call out that we have our other artists in the room, such as Francis Wong, who's an amazing musician over here in that corner over there. And we also have Shannon Yip, who is actually our secretary on our board, who's a dancer. And we have the wonderful people from Ethnotech here tonight. We have Robert and Nancy, so I want to say thank you for coming tonight. And of course,